Some people today say that the civil rights movement was a huge mistake.
What I'm trying to counter is the reason we talk about race so much is because we have a federal holiday to a guy that talked about race all the time.
But today, we're going to step back into the 1960s, a time when brave men and women risked everything to fight for justice. Leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and even cultural icons like Muhammad Ali stood at the front lines of change. Their courage reshaped America, and their sacrifices made civil rights possible.
You my enemy. My enemy is the white people, not Viet Congs or Chinese or Japanese. You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
3 voices, 3 visions, 1 fight. What happens when 3 men, born in a country that denied their humanity, rose to challenge an empire? 1 fought with love, 1 with fire, 1 with unshakable defiance. Together, they changed America and the world forever. Before we dive in, if you believe history should be told in a way that speaks to both the young and the old, black and white, then you're in the right place. We tell stories not as dusty dates and names, but as living struggles that shape us all. So hit subscribe, because more untold stories like this are on the way. To understand Ali, King, and Malcolm, we first have to understand the America they grew up in. The 1950s and 60s were not the golden years of American freedom that school textbooks like to show. For Black Americans, it was the age of segregation. Whites-only signs hung over restaurants and schools. Police dogs attacked children in Birmingham. Poverty crushed black neighborhoods, while opportunities were locked behind color lines. And as if racial oppression wasn't enough, the Vietnam War was pulling young black men into a fight overseas, even while their rights at home were denied. It was a nation built on contradictions, preaching freedom abroad, while silencing freedom at home. It was in this America that 3 different voices rose up. A preacher who called for love, a firebrand who demanded respect, and a fighter who refused to be silenced. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali, 3 men who would define what it meant to fight for freedom. Martin Luther King Jr. Montgomery bus boycott, 1955.
Exalted. And every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. That nonviolence is the answer to the crucial political and moral questions of our time.
Martin Luther King Jr. was not just a preacher, he was a strategist of the soul. Born into the black church tradition, his voice carried the cadence of the pulpit, but his message carried the fire of revolution. Inspired by the teachings of Jesus and the example of Gandhi, King built his movement on one radical idea, that nonviolence could defeat violence, that love could expose the injustice of hate. For King, nonviolence wasn't weakness, it was discipline. It meant facing water hoses, police dogs, and nightsticks without striking back. It meant filling jails until the system could no longer contain the voices crying out for freedom. It meant forcing America to look in the mirror and see the hypocrisy of calling itself a democracy while practicing segregation. King first rose to national fame in 1955 during the Montgomery bus boycott, sparked by Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat. For over a year, black residents walked instead of riding segregated buses. 8 years later, in 1963, King stood before the Lincoln Memorial and delivered one of the most iconic speeches in history. In front of 250,000 people, he painted a vision of America where children of all races could sit together at the same table of brotherhood. His words traveled the world, shaking governments and inspiring movements from South Africa to India. But King's greatest test came in Selma, Alabama. In 1965, peaceful marchers demanding voting rights were beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in what became known as Bloody Sunday. The images horrified the nation, and within months, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act. Once again, King's nonviolence had forced America to change. King preached love, but in another corner of America, a very different voice was rising. While King told his followers to march peacefully into the jaws of hatred, Malcolm X was telling black Americans they had the right to defend themselves by any means necessary.
That every Negro in the country should learn judo and karate.
2 men, 2 visions, 1 struggle, and soon the world would hear them clash.
You don't know what a revolution is. If you did, you wouldn't use that word. A revolution is bloody. Revolution is hostile. Revolution knows no compromise. Revolution overturns and destroys everything that gets in its way. And you sitting around here like a knot on these folks, no matter how much they hate me. No, you need a revolution.
I believe in human beings, and that all human beings should be respected as such, regardless of their color. Before Malcolm X became a symbol of defiance, he was Malcolm Little, a boy from Omaha, whose childhood was torn apart by racism and poverty. His father, a preacher who spoke about black pride, was killed under suspicious circumstances. His mother was institutionalized. By his teens, Malcolm was hustling on the streets, pulled into a world of crime and survival. Prison seemed to seal his fate. But prison was also where he was behind bars. Malcolm encountered the Nation of Islam, a movement that preached black pride, discipline, and separation from a corrupt white society. He devoured books, sharpened his mind, and emerged not as Malcolm Little, but as Malcolm X, the X symbolizing the unknown African name stolen by slavery. While Martin Luther King preached nonviolence, Malcolm preached self-defense. He told black Americans that turning the other cheek was not strength but submission. By any means necessary was not just a slogan, it was a call to reclaim dignity. If the government would not protect black lives, then black people had the right, no, the duty, to protect themselves. For years, Malcolm rose as the most electrifying voice of the Nation of Islam, spreading Elijah Muhammad's teachings to thousands. But cracks soon appeared. Malcolm discovered corruption in his leader, and his own vision began to outgrow the narrow confines of the sect. In 1964, Malcolm broke from the nation and traveled to Africa and the Middle East. In Mecca, he witnessed Muslims of every race praying side by side. It changed him. For the first time, Malcolm saw the possibility of solidarity beyond color. His speeches softened toward whites who were truly committed to justice. He was no longer just a nationalist. He was becoming a global revolutionary. But before this new vision could fully bloom, his enemies struck. On February 21, 1965, Malcolm X was assassinated while speaking in Harlem. He was only 39 years old. His death silenced his voice, but his words never stopped echoing. To some, he was dangerous. To others, he was a prophet. To all, he was unforgettable. And while Malcolm's fire was spreading, one young man, a heavyweight boxing champion, was listening closely. His name was Cassius Clay, soon to be Muhammad Ali, inspired by Malcolm's defiance. Ali would take the fight out of the ring and on to the world stage, and his refusal to bow would make him the most famous fighter of all time, not just with his fists, but with his conscience.
My name is a white people, not Viet Congs or Chinese or Japanese. You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
Muhammad Ali was more than the heavyweight champion of the world. He was the heavyweight champion of conscience. When America drafted him to fight in Vietnam, he stunned the world by refusing. This was not just about war, this was about principle. Ali looked straight at the camera and said the words that shook white and black America alike.
I'm not going to help nobody.
It wasn't that Ali was afraid of war. This was a man who had fought some of the fiercest boxers alive. He had danced with giants in the ring. But Ali understood that the real fight wasn't in the jungles of Vietnam, it was in the streets of America, where black people were denied dignity, housing, jobs, and justice. In 1967, when he refused the draft, the U.S. government came down hard. Ali was stripped of his heavyweight title, banned from boxing during the prime of his career, and faced a possible prison sentence.
I will say here boldly now on television, no, I will not go 10,000 miles from here to help murder and kill another poor people simply to continue the domination of white slave masters.
This was more than a boxer's defiance. It was a line in the sand. Ali told America that his faith, his values, and his people meant more than money, fame, or titles. He could have taken the easy road, fought in the ring, earned millions, and stayed quiet. But Ali chose principle over profit. And because of that, he became the people's champion. Black Americans saw Ali as a man who wouldn't bow, who wouldn't bend. Even many white Americans who disagreed with him couldn't deny his courage. Ali's charisma made him larger than life. He rhymed, he joked, he taunted opponents with lines that became part of American culture. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. The hands can't hit what the eyes can't see. Ali's conversion to Islam was also central to his identity. He rejected his slave name, Cassius Clay, and declared himself Muhammad Ali. Just like Malcolm X, he was saying, I will define myself, America will not define me. That act of self-definition was powerful. For many young black men and women, Ali showed that it was possible to embrace faith, pride, and resistance, and still be a superstar. When Ali returned to boxing in the 1970s, his fights weren't just athletic events, they were cultural earthquakes. The rumble in the jungle against George Foreman in 1974 wasn't just a fight, it was a global statement of black power and resilience. Ali fought in Africa, cheered by crowds chanting, Ali once said, "He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life," and he lived that. His fight was not just for himself, but for dignity, for justice, and for generations who came after him. He showed the world that being a champion wasn't about the gold belt, it was about standing firm when the world tries to silence you. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King believed America could be redeemed. His dream wasn't just about black freedom, it was about America living up to its own promises. Through peaceful marches, speeches, and his unwavering commitment to nonviolence, he pricked the conscience of the nation, and it worked. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, these were direct victories tied to his movement. His strategy forced white America to look at its violence, fire hoses, dogs, beatings, and ask, who are we? Malcolm X didn't care about winning America's heart. He cared about winning freedom. To him, waiting for white approval was a dead end. His voice demanded dignity now, not tomorrow, not after another vote, but now. He didn't ask for equality. He declared it. For young black men and women in urban America, Malcolm's message was magnetic. He gave them language for their frustration, and he turned shame into pride. His influence echoed through the rise of the Black Power movement, the Black Panthers, and a cultural shift that declared blackness beautiful, intelligent, and powerful. Then came Ali, who bridged both worlds. He wasn't a preacher, he wasn't a politician, he was a fighter, but his refusal to bow, his faith in Islam, and his public stand against Vietnam turned him into something bigger. Ali brought the struggle into living rooms worldwide. He was proof that you didn't need a pulpit or a protest march to stand for something. With every fight, with every bold word, he became a cultural revolutionary. This is the question: whose path delivered the most? We have walked through the voices of three giants: Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali. 3 men, 3 battles. King's dream moved laws and opened doors, but the struggle for equality is far from over. Malcolm's fire turned shame into pride, and his demand for dignity still shapes the voices of today. Ali's courage made resistance global and proved that even the loudest system can be shaken by one fearless man. And yet the story isn't done. America still wrestles with the same shadows they fought. The dream is still unfinished. The fire is still burning. The fight is still on. That's why their names live, not as statues, not as holidays, but as reminders. When people march today under the banner of Black Lives Matter, they are not just chanting a slogan. They are carrying forward the spirit of Ali, Malcolm, and King. But today's America faces a choice. Will it continue down the road of racial gaps, suspicion, and superiority, or will it finally embrace a future where black, white, Latino, Asian, Native, and immigrant all live with equal dignity? The solution is not in choosing one man's way over the others, but in bringing their wisdom together. King's dream of peace, Malcolm's demand for respect, Ali's fearless courage. That combination is the roadmap for ending racism, not just in laws, but in hearts, systems, and daily lives. So now, I want to ask you, whose struggle speaks to you most? Do you believe America needs King's vision of unity more than ever? Do you think Malcolm's boldness is the language this generation must speak? Or do you feel Ali's fearless example is the best way to inspire change today? Which of these men wakes something in you, not just in memory, but in action? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is not just their story, it's our story. If you believe their legacies matter today, if you believe America can live in peace with dignity, not divided by racial gaps or false superiority, then be part of the change. Hit that subscribe button, share this video, and keep this conversation alive, because Ali, King, and Malcolm gave us the blueprint, but it's up to us to build the future.